Hello and welcome to my garage. Today I'm going to be talking you through the cylinder head removal procedure for an MGB. The most likely reason to remove the cylinder head would generally be to change the head gasket. In my car's case, I've run a compression test and I found it's a little bit uneven, so I'd like to take a look at the gasket and also send the head away for its seasonal refresh. Let's take a quick look at the tools we'll need for the job. In terms of the removal, there's nothing particularly specialist. I've got some pieces of cardboard here that I've punched some holes to. These are numbered 1 to 4 and then 5 to 8. That's just to put the push rods in when they come out, the idea being that you put them back in the same order. We've got a couple of spanners and bits here, a torque wrench that we won't need for the removal but we will need it when we put the head back on, and also I'd always recommend having a gasket set ready to go. I tend to use the PN one, which is the one shown in the kit here. That comes with all the other bits as well. The other option is something like the multi-layered steel shim one. I used to race with these, but I just found for the price they were, the pay-in worked out a lot better. I think these are, talking about over £100 for the multi-layer steel one, and it's about £20 there for the whole kit. Now we'll take a quick look at the car just to see how the procedure will unfold. First of all, I'll be draining the water from the radiator. That's very important because obviously you've got water flowing around the head here. We don't want that falling in the cylinders if we can help it. We'll need to remove the carburetor on that side and the exhaust manifold. Not so much on this side. The spark plugs can stay where they are. The water pump can stay where it is. We'll obviously have to take off the hose at the top here, but not too much else. So I'm going to start off getting under the car and I'm going to drain the water. So I hope you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. Unfortunately the lighting isn't very good. Basically what I've got to do, there's a little bung there in the bottom of the radiator. That's a 9/16 head. On your car you may find you have a sort of a brass tap instead, but the first job is to get that removed and let the water drain into the tray. I'm going to try and do that whilst holding the camera at the same time, so forgive me if it all goes wrong, but there we go. That down, and I'll probably move the torch a bit as well. I don't get that wet. So let's just see if we can get that undone. There we go. So we'll let that drain down. I'm going to take the cap off the radiator too, so it drains a bit quicker. This coolant's probably 2 years old, so I'm going to change it anyway. But it is always worth keeping. If it's not been in the car very long, it's worth keeping it rather than disposing of it. So the coolant is currently draining. I've also you can possibly see, I've just jacked up the rear of the car to push all the water to the front of the engine, and hopefully it's going to come down and out of the radiator. My next job is going to be removing the carburetor. Obviously on this car it's a Weber rather than the SUs that you might have on yours. So this is a little throttle position sensor there for the data logger. That comes off. We've got a quick disconnect on the fuel. I'm actually going to cut the throttle cable because it's I tend to change it every 12 months anyway, so rather than trying to undo it, it usually damages the cable here anyway. So let me get on with that, and then we've just got the nuts at the back there that hold it on to the cylinder head. So let's get started. We'll pull these breather hoses off first. So these are just sort of pushed on. Again, in your car you may not have this. I've got a little box down here that all the parts go into, so they go back in the right order. Throttle cable I'm just going to cut. Obviously if you wanted to reuse it, you definitely could do. I just run a single cable on this car, so I change it fairly regularly. And then let me just pop that out of the way. And what I'll do now is I'll work along here with these exhaust manifold nuts. So I'm going to remove the two middle ones all together, and I've got a little glass pot that I'm going to put these in to keep them safe. Try my best not to lose these washers. I'm going to have to come around, I think. So that's them all loose. I've just got the final one at the front now, so I need to support the carburetor as I take this one off. So I'm just going to put the nut very carefully there and hopefully get that off. Yeah, it's all in one piece, and then that whole assembly will lift away from the car and into its box. I've then got the exhaust to do, so that's just these two end nuts. I think with hindsight, I might have been better off using a ratchet. So we'll just take these all the way up. You don't generally need to remove the exhaust from the car to take the head off. I'm going to see what my clearance is like. I might do anyway, so I've got further work to do on the car anyway. Okay, I'll just let that. I can just sit there for now, and then we'll move on to the top of the engine. Next job is to remove the rocker cover. That's just these two sort of special bolts on top. That's it, and I'll just drop that back in and lift that whole thing off. Gasket. And now the next job will be this the thermostat housing at the front there. So let's start by loosening the tube leads off. Pull this one way, then the other, and it's free. Onto the thermostat housing next. I'd always be a little bit careful with these. They have a tendency to shear off if they've got rusted on. I mean, these haven't been on very long, so they're nice and clean. But I just say take your time with these nuts, and by all means sort of soak them in WD-40 overnight or a similar oil before you start the procedure. So hopefully we'll just get our bar on these, and they should come off without too much trouble. Okay, and we've got these. This is just an aluminium washer that I use to seal them up. I'll put these in the tub, and hopefully we can just lift the thermostat housing up. Obviously, you don't need to remove this if it's really stiff. You can still take the head off with it in place. So I'm going to leave the gasket where it is for now. That can stay put. So next we're moving on to this side. We'll take the plug leads off. We've got a connector here for that's for the water temperature, and then we'll start looking at the rocker assembly next. So to start off with, let's do this the water temperature sensor. Drop down. We'll take the plug leads off. We'll leave the plugs in for now. There's no need to remove them, but I will take the distributor cap off and just get that out of the way for now. So that's clear. So now we can look at the rocker assembly. I'm going to start off with these the nuts on the top here. So I'm just going to give those a sort of a half turn, just to sort of loosen them off. I'm not going to remove them all together for now. I just want to take a little bit of tension off them. and next we're going to work on the head nuts. With the head nuts here, there is a sequence for tightening up. It basically goes up from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, goes round in a spiral. So to remove them, I'm going to go the opposite way round. So I'm going to start on this one, which I think is usually the final one. And I'm just going to sort of crank these off about sort of half a turn. So I go around them in order. So they've all sort of started to come away. So I'll just go around now, and I'm going to loosen them all up. You may find, obviously, if you've got rust on the threads of these, they do get a bit difficult. Again, soak them in oil overnight and see if you can get them to loosen that way. So I'm just going to go around now and loosen all of them up. Now I'm going to loosen the rocker nuts completely. Remove these from the engines. So just loosen these right off. I've still left the head nuts in place. So let me just get these all the way up. Now sometimes the little washers on these can be a bit tricky. So I'm just going to take the nuts off to start with. I might just use a magnet to get the washers off. So let's get these off first of all. And again, we want to keep all these safe in a nice dish. For the washers, I've just got this very useful sort of magnet tool, and that will hopefully just allow me to get underneath to lift those out fully. So let's do these 4. And on the last one, we've got this special sort of tab washer as well. So we'll take all of those off. So that's all of the smaller rocker nuts removed. I'm now going to move on. And we'll do these larger ones. They're all sort of been taken off half a turn now, so the loosening order isn't quite so important. So I'm just going to go down and make sure each one, apart from that end one, is sort of ready to go. And then I'm going to bring the little pot over, and we'll get all these taken off. Again, I've got the magnet just to remove these washers. There we go. That should now mean all the rocker nuts are off, and so the whole assembly should just lift up and out of the car. Just remember that depending on the sort of style of assembly you have, these end pedestals may not be fixed to the shaft, so it is worth sort of keeping some pressure on this oil as you lift it and make sure nothing falls off and damages the car. So I'm just going to carefully Let's see if we can lift that up. That's come free quite easily. I've taken a push rod with me, but that's fine. So just carefully take that away and onto the bench. This is where our mark card comes in useful. We've got the numbers on here to correspond with the push rod, so we take each one out, making sure that the valve bit at the bottom stays. Just stays in place. So we'll take all 4 of this one out. You just sort of hear the cam followers drop as you lift that up. So that's that 4, and then we take out 5 to 8. So again, just drop those cam followers off. Now we're ready to move on to the next set of nuts for the head removal. Before you remove the head, you want to set aside an area on your bench that's nice and clean. Just stops the head getting any contaminants or grit on it when you remove it from the car. So just looking around again, we're nearly ready to remove it. We've got the final nuts to take off on that side, and then we should be hopefully ready to lift the head out of the car. So let's take off these final nuts now. They should all just be sort of finger tight. I think they're ready to go, so let's get on with these. And again, I'm going to use the magnet at the end just to remove the washers. So that should now be everything removed from this head, so we can lift it up. I've left the studs in for now. You may find if you've got rust around these, you need to try and get 2 nuts on those to take these studs all the way out. Also, be very careful of your back when lifting this head up. I think it's around sort of 30 kilos or so, and unfortunately you're leant right over when you do it. So I'm going to move this bonnet prop out of the way for now and just see if I can lift that head out cleanly from this side. If I can't, I'll be removing the studs so I can get at it a bit easier. So let's just see if that'll... Okay, that's come off all right, so let me take that right out the way. That's the head off. We'll take the gasket out as well. I won't be reusing this, but I will also take a look over it just to see if we've got any sort of any marks on there. There's a little bit of water just around there. That's fairly normal. We'll just give that a wipe down, and then we're about done. So that's the cylinder head removed. We can take these final studs out of the block now if we wanted to give this all a nice clean down. I'm just seeing I've got a few little, I think they're just little bits of carbon around the edges of the bore there. Here on the bench we've got the removed cylinder head. All looks nice and clean, no problems that I can see, but we will be taking this off to be refreshed as it's had 2 years of use. So that concludes my cylinder head removal video. Hopefully you'll join me in a few months' time when I put the refreshed head back into the car. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch, and as always, please like and subscribe to my channel. Many thanks, bye.